Well, hi everybody, welcome to The Firewall. I'm Bill Whittle. You know, one of my favorite lines about progressive thinking is, yes, it works in practice, but will it work in theory? So let's talk about Obamacare. Forget about whether or not it works in practice. Let's see how it works in theory. Let's start with the difference between rights and commodities. Advocates say that healthcare is a right. Well, unlike freedom of speech, religion, assembly, actual rights, healthcare costs money. Healthcare is a commodity. All that means is it's something that costs money. None of our existing rights cost money, but healthcare does. And when we make a commodity into a right, there will be consequences. The best way to think of this is to look at other things that should be rights if commodities become rights. You can go longer without healthcare than you can without food, so should food be a right? You can go longer without healthcare than you can without a roof over your head. Should housing be a right? Now, if you have a right to health care and food and shelter, then that means that you don't have to do a lick of work for them. If they are your rights, they must be supplied to you. No one takes away your right to free speech or to vote if you're out of work or choose not to work. So if housing, food, and health care are rights, then they're owed to you from birth, and you're under no obligation to do anything in return. If you have a right to food, housing, and health care, why would anybody work? The people who have to provide these things, like the farmers, contractors, and doctors, well, they have to work because these commodities as rights have to be provided. So these people become our slaves. And if you have a right to housing, let's say, what kind of house do you have a right to? I don't have a cut-rate Fifth Amendment protection against self-incrimination. I get the same protection as Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. But if housing is a right, why should I have to take a smaller house than them? Why can't I eat caviar and lobster every night like they do? Why don't I get the same Cadillac healthcare plan as members of Congress, let's say? Who pays for all of these things? That's not my problem. I know my rights. And finally, if I have a right to commodities like healthcare or food or housing, what about transportation? Do I have a right to that? What kind of car do I have a right to? Why a Honda and not a Mercedes? And do I have a right to entertainment? Do I have a right to a 60-inch LED widescreen TV? And if not, why not? Why do I have a right to some commodities and not others? And who decides? Here's a second look into the theory of Obamacare. In a world of private insurance, if you weigh 600 pounds, smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and want to ride a motorcycle without a helmet, well then first, that is a picturesque image, and second, it's none of my damn business. I'm not paying for your health care. You are. You do whatever the hell you want. We used to call this particular theory of doing things a free country. But if the state insures everyone through taxation, the British or Canadian-style single-payer healthcare system that is the holy grail of progressives and is openly acknowledged as the end result of foot-in-the-door Obamacare. Well, if everyone is responsible for paying for everyone else's healthcare, then suddenly your weight, your habits, and your activities do become my business, since I'm paying for it. Then we start to see things like obesity taxes and helmet laws and all of these other things that make sense only in the context of saving pooled resources. You're not going to want to live in the kind of world that will eventually become. You know, prior to Obamacare, the 93% of the U.S. population that had private health insurance had the best health care in the world. That system was not perfect by any means. Health care costs a fortune, and it continues to rise. 7% of the population either could not afford it or chose not to afford it. But the answer to these rising costs is not socialized health care, which doesn't work in practice or in theory. The answer is to get costs under control. Why is it that a sprained ankle used to be a $50 visit and is now a $500 visit? Well, in the old days, a doctor would sit with the patient, examine the ankle, say, that's a sprained ankle, and tell you to stay off it for a while and send you home. Now, that same doctor will make that same diagnosis and send you out for an MRI to confirm what he already knew. Why? To protect himself from a malpractice suit. Did you know that a vanishingly small percentage of all doctors are responsible for the vast majority of all malpractice suits? You get those guys out of medicine, and you get rid of most of this problem. Put reasonable tort reform in place, and many of these costs go back down where they belong. Did I mention that trial lawyers are consistently among the largest donors to Democrats and progressives in general, and Barack Obama in particular? No? It's probably just a coincidence. And if you want to keep messages like this coming, go to declarationentertainment.com today and become a citizen producer. We really need your help. I'm Bill Whittle. We'll see you next time on The Firewall.